Welcome to the Fantech booth. My name is Corbett Lunsford. I do not work for Fantech. I work with Fantech. They are helping to make this conversation a public one. Your clients will be learning what I am about to tell you. I would rather them learn it from you than from me. So we're going to talk about how that happens. I am a diagnostics expert, so I test homes and residential construction for a living. I know what is happening with the heat flow, the airflow and pressure, the moisture, and the air quality contaminants, most important, in the homes you are building. And airtight is good. Are we building homes more airtight? Yes. Can you do anything about that? No, you cannot. Homes are being built more airtight. Are your clients insane? Yes, they are going to be bringing crazy stuff into their airspace and making their kids breathe it. You need to help protect your clients from themselves. And here's how we do this. First of all, you need to understand why you are in big, big trouble. These are three numbers that should be indelibly etched on your brain. Does anybody know what they mean? This is an indoor chemistry basic. 79 years average life expectancy of an American. 70 of those 79 years you will spend inside of buildings, roughly 90%. If we include vehicles, it goes over 90%. We don't go outside anymore. We're inside people. 50 years out of those 70 years you spend inside buildings is spent inside of your own home. The buildings that we are building and putting whole families inside, all the stuff that they're getting polluted with, that they're breathing, that is going to have health effects on the development of children. And by the way, let's be perfectly clear, everybody who can hear my voice right now is already dying. We are all broken, poisoned people. It's fine. We're not talking about us. We're talking about my kids. I have two daughters. I wish I had 3 daughters. I don't. I live in 200 square feet. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. My daughters are 3 and 1. Am I worried about their brain development and their hormones and their, emotional system and their immune system being affected by chemicals and weird stuff that they're breathing? Oh yeah. Especially with how much I know, I am freaking out. So I am building my own house, and I am putting Fantech ventilation inside of my house, and I will tell you why in a moment. But the reason is not because I work for Fantech, it's because ventilation is incredibly important, and these guys make some of the best equipment in the world to do this, because you have to make decisions about houses. We have to have houses. You are going to put crazy stuff inside. Let's make sure that we take it out. So 50 years of the 79 years that you're alive. The reason that we're talking about this year, and that you will not hear anyone else at this show talking about this topic, is because I'm one of the only people at this show who knows anything about this, because we were involved in the Home Chem experiment. Home Chem stands for House Observations of Microbial and Environmental Chemistry. It is part of a 10-year, $50 million study, independent from industry, funded by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, and it took place over a month last year in the University of Texas test house. This was what the experiment was all about. They did things where they would cook and then clean and then leave and see what happens to the chemical levels as they spike and go down. They're watching on a millisecond to millisecond basis. I take about $20,000 of test instruments into my clients' homes when I'm working on home performance consulting. These guys brought $4.5 million of gas chromatographs and mass spectrometers and lasers and all this stuff to really monitor on a millisecond basis what new things were being formed. There were 63 researchers, all of whom basically were atmospheric chemists who had studied outdoor air for their entire career, and what they found pretty much floored them. Many of these people are now going to almost entirely start working on the indoor environment because they've realized the outside stuff is kind of boring compared to how exciting it is indoors. So, Grace and I were the video team that were hired by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation to be the communications team, because it turns out scientists are terrible at telling the story of what it is that they're researching. You listen to the best scientists in the world discussing their most exciting work, and half the audience is asleep. So they needed somebody to help them tell this story, and that's what they brought us in for. So you can see 36 videos about the indoor chemistry of the homes that you are building and selling on the YouTube channel for free, and they're embeddable. If you want to explain something to your client, have us explain it to them inside. So say, watch this, and you'll understand. We have the chemists on this. You'll see very little of us on these videos. It's mostly us pointing the camera at these chemists and talking about what it is. Now, your clients will be finding out about this topic, whether you like it or not, because we're on PBS. We have the first ever television series about home performance and building science. On HGTV, you might see an episode or something that mentions indoor air quality. We're talking about indoor air quality and health and changing the transformation of the conversation from energy efficiency, which is super boring, let's be honest, to health and control. Are Americans allowed to have indoor pools? Yes. Are Americans allowed to have 3 wine cellars and an indoor basketball court if they want? Yes. Are Americans allowed to cook with gas? Sure. Yes, this is America. Do what you want. But let's keep your family safe while you're doing it, because yeah, all those things are going to have indoor air quality problems. So I would rather they hear this stuff from you than from me, some guy on PBS who tells them every episode that I used to play piano for ballerinas for a living. My dad is not a builder. If I can talk about this stuff and do this stuff, any builder at the show can do much better at it than I am, because I am a newbie compared to you. That's one of my strengths, by the way, is that I'm still new at this. Everybody raise your right hand. I'm going to give you a superpower right now. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. Sometimes I'm an idiot. It's okay. You don't have to know everything. These chemists don't know everything about chemistry, and they'll be the first ones to tell you, like, we don't know what's going on. So these are the companies that actually put their money where their mouth is. You'll see lots of marketing around this show about indoor air quality and how we need to teach homeowners about asking for better products that are going to control their health of their kids and blah, blah, blah. These companies, and you can see Fantech is front and center at the top of the list. They were one of the first founding sponsors of the show, and they're the leading sponsor for season 2 of this show, which is why I'm here talking about this, because this is the most important booth of this entire show to me. They care about this topic more than other people. Again, this is on PBS. Let's be clear, all of our clients know that everything on HGTV is a commercial in disguise. They all know that. PBS is an educational basis. That's why we wanted to do this.
I pay you for that, right?
Nice. That's not, yeah, they're going to pay me later, and it's not $1. So please do give those companies love, because they care about this topic enough to really fund an educational program. So first of all, here's what you need to know. Chemicals. You are made out of chemicals. Everything we breathe and eat and everything you can see in this room is chemicals. Chemicals are not bad. There is no such thing as chemical free. Don't let anybody get away with saying that. What they mean maybe is synthetic chemical free, because there's a difference between cutting into a lemon and smelling that and manufacturing limonene, which is the molecule that is the thing that you mostly are smelling. Those are 2 totally different processes, because lemon doesn't smell like that 3 hours later, right? It smells totally different. It's because it decays. Synthetic chemicals are different than natural chemicals, but they're not always bad. They sometimes can help you, right? We think about penicillin, naturally occurring, good. Some natural things can help you. Some natural things, like cocaine, not good for you, natural, right? So this is not a distinction between natural and synthetic. What we need to do is control what chemicals we bring into our homes. And that starts with you, because you are building the homes. Do you know what is in the stuff that you're installing in people's homes? Do you know what's coming out of the glues, the adhesives, the caulks, the spray foams? And I'm going to talk about foam in a minute. If you want to get your mind blown about where we're going with foam, just stay tuned. I'm going to make some enemies in a second. Now, the second part of this is created. Did you know that you are manufacturing, your families, while you're here, are manufacturing weird chemicals inside of your home and then breathing them? There's chemicals you bring in, there's chemicals that come in from outside. When those things meet, they mate and they react with each other, and you make new chemicals that were not there to begin with. How freaky is that? Not only can we not foresee what a water heater is going to react with a wood-burning fireplace and the pressure interaction there, we're bringing in lotions and candles, and we've got a 3D printer in the corner, and we've got all this stuff going on. We can't foresee all that, and you shouldn't have to. You should be able to control it and take care of whatever they bring into the house. Particles. No such thing as a healthy level of particles for your clients to breathe, or for you to breathe. You are making particles inside of your home. Do you know how you do that? Does anybody know an easy way to create particles inside of your home? Cooking, yes, exactly. Cleaning, do you do those inside your home? Does every person on the entire planet do that inside their home? Yes. You are going to be creating horrible stuff to breathe inside of homes. We can't avoid it. So don't worry about it, let's take care of it. So what we want to do is control how many we're creating and where they're going to go. Chemicals or particles created inside of a kitchen that then go outside, fine. don't worry about it. That's fine, as long as they're not sticking around inside, because we are building homes more airtight than ever before, and you can't do anything about it. Homes are more airtight. We are going to be poisoning our families because they spend 90% of their lives inside buildings, period. So let's go ahead and have this conversation. Third thing is microbes. There are billions of other creatures living in your house with you, and they are all eating and excreting and farting and pooping all the time. This is the only booth where we're going to talk about pooping at this show. I hope that you guys feel special. Your microbiome in your gut is incredibly important. Have you guys heard the news that your gut actually basically runs your brain? The little bugs inside of your intestines tell your brain what you want to eat. So if you eat a lot of the same kind of thing, you'll get that microbiome changing, right? What we want to understand is that sometimes it's healthy. You want to mix everything in moderation. Sometimes it's unhealthy. If you were to genocide everything in your house because, oh, there's this new disinfecting or nanoparticle, silver nanoparticle that's antimicrobial, and we can get rid of all the microbes. That's crazy. Number one, you can't get rid of microbes. Number two, you don't want to. And number three, what happens when all those things go away and they've been killed off? What comes in to replace them? And that's what you want to think about. And antimicrobial stuff is chemicals. So we're now full circle. Now we're bringing more chemicals into the house that we don't understand. So these are the three things that we need to do. Number one, don't bring bad stuff into the home. You need to educate yourself as a builder, control your liability, because if you bring things into the home that people don't understand, they're going to hear me say on PBS that most most plywood and OSB contains formaldehyde in the glue. You need to tell them that first and give them the option for the platinum package where you have multiple air sealing layers or where you use formaldehyde-free plywood or whatever, so that then they're not just hearing it from me and saying, wait a minute, that wasn't even an option for my builder. That's what we need to have happen, right? Is that we're all educating this together. And then the clients need to educate themselves. How do you do that? Again, television show. That's why we committed to put this topic on television, because I'm trying to pressure the homeowners to do as much work as I'm asking you guys to do. Ventilate, number two. You gotta, when people are creating bad stuff, because you cannot avoid it, we gotta take that stuff outside. Everything in this booth is going to save your clients' children. Again, remember, we're not talking about us, we're all dying already. We're talking about our clients' kids. They're smaller, they have developing systems. Three is keep it dry. That might make sense on just a simple building science standpoint. We don't want mold created, we want to have vapor diffusion, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, that's all physics side. The chemistry side is slightly different. So, the contaminants that we have in our homes are, number one, in materials. We already talked about that. Number two is on surfaces. They land on surfaces. The main difference between indoor chemistry and outdoor atmospheric chemistry is the amount of surface to volume ratio. Outdoors, yeah, you got a forest or something like that, but mostly you have almost no surfaces compared to the volume of air that you've got. Inside, because we got so many surfaces, chairs, furniture, all of the tchotchkes that you've got, and us, we have lots and lots of things for these chemicals, particles, etc., to land on and then stay on. And then they get reactivated if we up the humidity inside the room. When you up the humidity, you can actually re-emanate all of these chemicals and particles into the air. Is there an interesting way, and by the way, this is being researched, to maybe, when you go to work, boost the humidity inside your home to get all those things off the surface, up the ventilation rate to flush everything out, dehumidify the space to get ready for you coming home, and now you've actually cleaned your house. Wouldn't that be crazy? To use the building as a tool to make your clients more healthy. As soon as one of you figures that out, they will be a billionaire. Everyone else looks like an idiot, right? We need to all be working on this together and talking about these possibilities. Second thing is, obviously, more humidity, more life forms. You can grow vegetables in Saudi Arabia. Some of the biggest farms in the world are in Saudi Arabia. You do not need dirt and soil. You need water and light. We got a warm place. You got the right humidity levels. You can grow mildew and mold on anything. I grow it on my plastic antimicrobial surface of my ductless mini split. I know how this works. More pollution indoors than outdoors. Number one takeaway for every single atmospheric chemist on this team. They were floored at how every single thing they study outdoors is astronomically higher inside. And the fluctuation, the amount of time it takes for it to go from not a problem to horribly polluted, get out, is about 5 minutes inside. Outside, it takes literally a week for that to happen, to build up, right? Now, there is nothing that is stopping any of this from happening in your homes. OSHA regulates the home while it's being built as an occupational space. Do you think 3D printers are cool? Does anybody think that your clients might be buying 3D printers for their teenage kids? Do you know what 3D printers create as a side effect when you use them? Lots of particles. What's always bad to breathe? Particles, right? So your clients are going to be bringing crazy stuff into the home. It's not regulated by OSHA. If you had a 3D printer in your office, it would be regulated by OSHA, and it would say you have to have an exhaust there if you're going to have that machine, right? At a home, nobody does that. FDA monitors what you eat, what goes in your mouth. Well, I'm going to cook a turkey. If I eat the turkey, it's going to get into my body. If I breathe in the turkey, it's still getting in my body. What's the difference? It's actually pretty astounding what the difference is. Your respiratory system and your digestive system, completely different evolutionarily. Watch the videos for that. I'm not going to get into it. CPSC monitors things like, for example, in the 1980s, we used to put flame retardants into kids' jammies. Did you know that? Did you know what flame retardants do to kids? They're mutagenic, meaning they cause cancer, and they hurt the endocrine system. So we took that away, and the CPSC said, oh, you're not allowed to put them in kids' jammies anymore. So did the industry just say, oh, this is bad for kids, we're just not going to manufacture it anymore? Is that what they did? Absolutely not. Yeah, they put it in mattresses and any foam that is in buildings. Every foam insulation that you will see at this show and out in the real world has flame retardants in it. Do they come out? Yes. They come out very slowly over a very long period of time. They are built to be in there for a very long time. So yeah, they come out, but they come out forever. Houses are being built more airtight. We got to talk about this stuff, right? So is spray foam insulation bad, and should we outlaw it? No, it's here to stay. We got to talk about it, right? So it should be that the regulators don't force them to put flame retardants in it. That's what we really should have, and you guys can help with that goal. They just passed a thing in California that said that we can start manufacturing foam in this country to put under the slab in contact with the ground where there's no flame, there's no oxygen, it's ridiculous. You can have it without flame retardant in it there. That's the first step to taking it out everywhere else. So, the known villains that we have in products, number one, highly fluorinated chemicals. These are in anything that's waterproof or stain repellent. So, there are carpets around here that we've got stain repellent chemicals in. What those are is highly fluorinated chemicals. These are things that last forever. There is no known way to kill these chemicals, to take them apart. They last forever. They get into your system, they're in your system forever. You will never get rid of them. It's not like carbon dioxide where you might get up elevated levels in your system, but then you keep breathing and it'll flush out. You just keep accumulating over your life and they will affect you. So don't do waterproof, don't do stain repellent. Don't put any of that stuff in your house. Because guess who crawls on carpet that has stain repellent chemicals in it? Babies. Easiest person. Do we really think that vaccines are the only difference between 50 years ago and kids today? I do think that vaccines might make a difference, and I do pay attention to that. I try to use a reasonable, well thought out, informed risk when I get vaccines for my kids. But there is an infinite number of ways that we are poisoning kids today that we were not 50 years ago that has nothing to do with vaccines. Why are we talking about vaccines? So we got to stop doing that. We got to start talking about this stuff instead. Flame retardants, we already talked about. Furniture. And so the furniture thing is like, you're not going to get rid of that. People are going to have furniture. We got to ventilate. Bisphenols and phthalates, things that are in plastics to make it more flexible, to make it more rigid, to make it work. Vinyl flooring has phthalates. These are big, honky molecules that don't react at all. They're another kind of forever chemical. They get out of the vinyl flooring. They come out naturally, right? And then they glom onto a piece of dust. You walk by, and the dust comes off the ground and up into the air, and then your kid breathes it in because they're lower than you are, or your cat, or your dog, or whatever your client cares about. I want to protect your dogs, Mrs. Jones. I know you've got 3 of them and you love them so much. I can't install vinyl flooring for you because, bam. Great, you just made a new convert. Guess what every floor in every school that we send all of our kids to in the entire country is made out of? Vinyl. They're vinyl floors, right? How crazy is this? We are guinea pigs in a giant, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and then I say something that makes me sound like I'm a conspiracy theorist. Any scientist that's on my team for the 63 scientists on the home chem experiment will all totally agree. We're totally guinea pigs in this experiment because we're inventing new chemicals all the time that you will see all over this show. And sometimes we'll find out, oh, that's bad. And they'll substitute it with something else. It's called a regrettable substitution sometimes. Some solvents and certain metals we won't get into. By the way, BPA, they found out BPA is bad in water bottles. What do they replace it with? BPS. It's a bisphenol. It's another thing. They don't know anything about it. They don't know that it's bad, so we can use it. Until we find out that it's really, really bad, that it's maybe worse than BPA. Known villains in air. Obviously, we talked about particles and aerosols. Matter exists in 3 states. Solids melt into liquids, evaporate into vapor, right? Then we've got particles, which are either little blobs of liquid or little bits of solid that are so small that they're suspended in air. And if they're big, they fall down to Earth a lot faster, like dust, dirt, etc. But if they're small, they can hang around. So those are bad always. Ozone, always bad for people. Good in the stratosphere, we love it. Don't come down here. When ozone is high, they tell you to stay inside. That actually does work. Staying inside helps. But as soon as you do what, you're going to shoot that in the foot. Open a window. Do your clients open their windows in the summertime on maybe a bad indoor air quality day? Bam. Yep, right. So now we have ozone introduced. Ozone is highly reactive with certain molecules. It's selective. It only likes molecules that have a carbon double bond at the end. I won't get into what that means because partly I don't understand what that means. I hung out with enough chemists to know that that's true. But that means that it's going to bond then and react with certain chemicals that it finds in your house that you brought there or your client brought there. Then it's going to make a baby. One of the babies is hydroxyl radical, OH. This thing is like a frat boy. It wants to mate with anything it can find. So it just makes some new chemicals, and you don't know anything about what that's going to create now. Chlorine atoms do come from chlorine-based cleaners, and I'm going to make a broad generalization right now and tell you that if you want to protect your family, stop using chlorine-based anything. If you use, for example, and this is well documented by scientists who are not very good storytellers, just to remind ourselves why we're here talking about this with me instead of with a scientist, if you use chlorine-based dishwasher detergent, do you really think that all the chlorine and all the byproducts that are created during the heat reaction there go down the drain and go away? You don't think there's any residue on all of the surfaces inside of and on the dishes, right? So when you crack that open to dry it out, what emanates into your space that then you breathe is the same amount of chloroform that you would drink if you accidentally drank water in a city where they tell you, don't drink the water. If it was chloroform in the water, what you're breathing is exactly the same amount if you use that product. Who is going to tell you that? Clorox is not going to tell you that. And they don't have to. That's why, right? Okay, so nitrate radical is created by gas stoves. Do people like gas stoves? Does my wife like gas stoves?
I don't know, maybe.
Am I installing a gas stove in my new house that I'm building that's high performance and it takes all of this into account?
Yes.
Hell yeah. Happy wife, happy life. This guy knows, right? My wife wants gas. All right, baby, we're going to do gas. Am I going to have an exhaust hood over the top of it that goes outside and that I know for a fact, I have proven with testing, works? Yeah. So now I know we can have gas. And we got to make sure to use it all the time. By the way, what's the number one reason why people don't use their exhaust hood in their kitchen? Does anybody know? Because it's loud. I've had clients who say, oh no, they're all loud. And then she turns it on for me and I'm like, there's something horribly wrong with this machine. And she's like, no, don't they all sound like this? Literally, they think that they're all stupid machines. I have an exhaust hood that cost me $200 from another ventilation company that I won't mention by name. Off the shelf, nothing special about it, and I installed it in my house and it works perfectly, and I have a whispered conversation in front of my stove with my wife while it's running. That's what we need to be getting people. You need to go over here and check out the one that has a silencer built onto it. Once people understand that they don't have to have trash that we're selling them, and by the way, I'm perfectly clear with them that the reason that they're getting fast, cheap trash with most building stuff that they get is because that's what they've been asking us for decades. They wanted the fastest, cheapest thing. I would go with the low bidder who promises me a house in 3 months, right? If we tell them, look, you can have something better and here's how it will be better, it's going to take a little more time and a little more money. Is that worth it to you? How many people do you think would actually sign on for that? Let me ask you a different question. How many people buy a Lexus instead of Toyota? How many people shop at Whole Foods instead of Piggly Wiggly? How many people go to Starbucks for their coffee instead of drinking brown water from a Motel 6? Right? No offense to any of those cheap places, but I'm telling you that this is America and everyone buys something better for more money all the time. Buildings are no different. In fact, if you tell people that you're going to put your family in here and you might poison your children if you don't invest in something better, which I am doing for you on PBS, they'll run to you if you can actually deliver it. Can you actually deliver it is the question. You don't know until you start testing. The myth of VOCs. How many people remember a couple years ago when we took VOCs out of paint because they're bad? Did you guys know that VOCs were invented by corporations to save money? Not true. When you step into a forest or a field of flowers, what are you smelling? VOCs. We emit VOCs right now. Anything you smell is probably a VOC. VOCs are not bad. In fact, if you have high VOC levels on one of these little indoor air quality monitors that you put in your clients' houses because you're taking care of the air quality, it doesn't mean that the air quality is bad. It means it's a little smelly, but it's not a measure of unhealthiness or toxicity of the air. So this is kind of a weird conversation that we're having. By the way, this regrettable substitution I talked about, where we substituted, for example, BPS for BPA when we decided that that was not okay. Same happens with VOCs. When we took VOCs out of paints, we substituted them with SVOCs the next day. Those are semi-volatile organic compounds. VOCs come out in about 3 days out of paint. Your painter, is he wearing a respirator? Yeah, he's protecting himself because OSHA. So we had VOCs come out in 3 days and it was done. Now we substitute with SVOCs and it takes 30 years for these SVOCs to come out. The kids are breathing it now. Yay, we did something great for the planet. Awesome, congratulations to us. Particles, always normally lower inside until we start cooking. And then you've got lots and lots of stuff going on. Now there's a couple different types of particles, PM 2.5 and PM 10. PM 2.5 is very small. We're talking about a 40th of a human hair. Can't see it, can't sense it. That stuff can go into your lower respiratory tract. It goes in your nose or your mouth and it goes deep, 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 deep into your lungs. It could go onto the lining of your lungs and go straight through the membrane and into your blood. And now it's in your system. And again, that's very different than eating something. If it goes in your saliva and you end up going into your digestive system, you have all kinds of mechanisms in place to get rid of waste in your digestive system, not in your respiratory system. PM10 is stuff that's going to irritate your upper respiratory system. Allergens, stuff like that. It's going to make you cough, sneeze, bother your sinuses. These are two totally different things. Here's the problem and why you need to know this right now. You're going to go buy a consumer indoor air quality monitor. It's going to measure VOCs, which I already said, not a great measure for unhealthiness of the air. And it's going to measure particles. The way it does that is it weighs them. We have an order of magnitude of 1 nanoparticle, which is bad for you, can go right into your blood, up to 10,000 nanometers. That's a huge difference, right? So if I have, let's say, 100 tiny particles that are all bad for me, and one giant thing that's 10,000 times the size, what am I actually measuring? I'm just measuring the big one. I'm not measuring any of the small ones at all because they have no mass compared to the big stuff. So what it turns out is that every time you make toast in your house, you are releasing a ton of very, very fine nanoparticles into the air that then you breathe. You can sometimes smell this from the smoke that comes out when you got a little burned piece of gunk in there. But it turns out that every surface, no matter how clean it is, no matter how recently you cleaned it, has a film of fat on it, of oils. And that includes the heating element on your toaster, and the top of your George Foreman grill, and any other heating, including the coffee maker, right? And so when you heat that up, those things, just like humidity, pop off of there, and they get into the air where now we can breathe them in, and it can affect our kids' systems. So, number one hero, if you're going to do one thing tomorrow, install kitchen hoods that go where? Outside. And how do you know they actually work? Test them. I have a video on this. Guess what equipment you need to test an exhaust hood? You need a candle that you snuff out, or a little stick of incense, which is not a good idea. In fact, candles and incense, bad ideas to burn inside homes. We're not going to get people to do that. I'm still going to make them feel bad about it on the show. But the kitchen exhaust is how we're going to solve a lot of this. So make sure that you test it. All you have to do is get something that puts out smoke and run it along the outside edge of your stovetop to make sure everything happens on top of the stovetop, goes outside. Your clients will test this for themselves because they see me teach them how to do it on PBS, and then they're going to come yell at you, or they're going to talk bad about you to their neighbor. Don't let them do that. You test it first, and you get your subcontractor to give you the exhaust hood performance that you're actually asking for. Number 2 thing, ventilation system. Some people are using bath fans 24 hours a day. Not great, because new homes are more airtight, which means they're more pressure sensitive, and if you depressurize a house all the time with one-way ventilation just out, it's going to have some effects. You don't know what those are unless you test. You're looking really frightened right now. I'm really good. Yeah. It's all flashing before your eyes. Okay. Yes. Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's very costly, and it makes you feel bad. Also, like, am I doing bad work? And we all have to ask that question before we start testing, because that's how you find out. The ventilation systems that I always recommend people use is pressure balancing. These are ERVs, HRVs. I call them equalizing ventilators to my clients. I just say they take the same amount of air that they give, and they try and make those 2 streams of air the same temperature and relative humidity as much as they can in an ERV's case, which is what I generally recommend. Hepa filters, right over here. All this stuff is right here for you. It's like super available. And there are other ventilation manufacturers even. There's no reason not to be taking care of this stuff. And vacuums. Think about how crazy this is. Your client has a vacuum cleaner that's not HEPA filtered, and they're gonna run it along the carpet and take all this stuff that's kind of harmless in the carpet, suck it up out of there, and then shoot it up into the air. Crazy. Why are we doing this? And lastly, how do you get your clients to do this? I don't know. This is next year's topic of conversation, or we'll have a behavioral psychologist in. Cleaning surfaces can help, we think. But yeah, vacuuming, taking care of this stuff, taking this stuff out is really important. So thank you guys very much for your time. I will take any questions. I will calm anyone down if they're having a freak out right now. Don't forget, I know a lot more about this stuff that I'm telling you right now, and I'm perfectly calm, and there is a path forward, and it involves engines that are going to take the bad stuff out of the house. That's how we move forward. That's the only way to do it, because there is bad stuff in there, and it is more airtight, period. Thank you guys very much for your time.